Try this once more. Well, have you ever wanted to add borders to your photos inside of Adobe Photoshop? Today I'm going to show you 3 distinct ways that you can add borders inside of Photoshop. The first are just going to be some really simple black and white borders that we can add. Then I'm going to show you how to create your own custom borders. And custom borders are really going to be defined on what you do to create your own borders. And then I'm going to show you some programs that have borders built into them. So whether you're looking for simple or complex borders, today we're going to cover what's available inside of Adobe Photoshop. So I have this image here. I've changed the ratio to 16:9 so it fits on YouTube. This was normally a 2:3 image. All right, so we've got this photo here and we want to apply a border to it, and this is as simple as it can be. You're going to come up here to image, and my mouse is jumping, but we're going to come here to canvas size. So there's 2 ways to do this. Right here you can see it says new size and we have it in a dimension. In this case I'm going to do millimeters just because it's easier, but you could do inches, pixels, whatever you want. If you're unsure what 20 pixels is going to look like, apply it. If it's not enough, add more. It's one of those trial and error things. In this case we're going to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3 and 3, and essentially this is going to give me a 3mm border the whole way around my image. Right here we have relative to current dimension. I'm going to show you that in a second. Right here the anchor point is this little round dot. It needs to be in the center. If not, it will not put the border even on all 4 sides. And down here is the color of the border. So if I want to do black, I switch it to black. You could do black, white, gray, red, green, purple, whatever you want to do. You just select that color, that's going to be your border color. To apply it, just come in here, hit OK, and boom, just like that, we now have a black border around this image. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Z to undo that. We're going to go to image and back down to canvas size. We're going to uncheck this. If you do it in this method with that off, you see right here we've got that dimension. In this case, if I was doing millimeters, I would switch this to millimeters. And then I would just add 3. So instead of 322, this would be 325. That would do the exact same. It's easier to do it this way. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 2 this time instead of 3. We're going to change black to white. And boom, just like that, we've got a white border. Now what we're going to do here is something a little bit fancier. You could just leave it as white, but we're also going to add black to it as well. This is something that some people like. So I'm going to come up here to image, drop down to canvas size. We're going to change this back to millimeters, and we're going to change this to 3 and 3 and make that black and hit OK, and boom. Now we have a white with a black border, another option that you could do. And you could really do any sort of combination of colors or whatever you want. You can make your borders bigger or smaller. It's perfectly up to you, but we've just created a really simple border using canvas size. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to make a little bit more complicated of a border. And I'm just going to hit Command Z to get back out of this. So for the next border, we are going to use this image here. This is a free image that you can all download from Pixabay. I will post the link to this in the description. I have already downloaded this image. However, what we're going to do is essentially create sort of like a watercolor or a brush inside of Photoshop. We're just going to use this method, but it's really up to you to kind of create your own custom brushes. I will show you the process and then how we do this. So let's go back on over to Adobe Photoshop, and we have this same image here. Right here is our brush. If we select that, it's going to bring up our brushes. And if we come up here, you will see we've got a whole bunch of brushes. In my case, I have watercolor brushes. However, most of you aren't going to have these brushes in here. So what I'm going to do is show you how to create a brush. So to create a brush, it's really easy. I'm going to hit Command O. And I'm going to open the file that we just downloaded. So there's the downloads. Here's that image. It's a PNG, so it's going to have a translucent background. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to recrop this. So I'm going to go to 1 by 1 because I want this to be more square. I just don't want to crop out any part of the brush. so it's more balanced in the image. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and crop. And then we're simply going to go to Layer, Flatten Image. If your image already has a white background, that's okay. So to create a brush in Photoshop, it's like the easiest thing. Whatever is black or gray is going to be your brush. Whatever is white isn't going to appear. Then we need to just go up here to Edit, and then we're going to go down here to Define Brush Preset. I will call this Splat Brush Border, so I know what it is. I'm going to hit OK. And you can see automatically, because I have the brush over there on the toolbar selected, it's bringing up this brush here. I could simply come in here and click that, and you can see it makes that watercolor splat simply into a brush. So now what we need to do is to apply this to the image. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Z, and I'm going to come down here to the plus that we see right here. I'm going to create a new layer. I don't want to do this directly on the layer that I have. I'm also going to come over here to this lock, and I'm just going to click it once to unlock it. So for this image, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that layer and I'm going to move it below the image. This is a translucent layer. I want it below my image here. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create a new mask. That's the mask icon. So we're going to get this white mask. Nothing is happening. That's exactly what we want. So I've got the brush about the size that I want. I think I'm not positive. And then we have the brush settings over here on the right. If you don't have brush settings up, you just go Window to Brush Settings, make sure it's ticked. And right here, you're going to see a whole bunch of different information. I'm going to click on Shape Dynamics. This lets us change the size of the brush. If I do this and I just have it the same, you can see it's just going to repeat that pattern, and that looks weird. We don't want that. So I'm going to go back. What I'm going to do is change size jitter, and this is just essentially going to randomize or change the size of the brush each time it does it. Right there we have minimum control diameter, so I could set a minimum for this if I wanted. We also have angle jitter. I want this pretty high because I want it to constantly rotate that brush so it's not oriented the same direction all the time. Right here, we also could do scattering, but that's going to move the brush all over the place, and we might not want that, but we can try it. Let's just scatter it a little bit, right? Not a lot, a little bit. We can also do transfer, and transfer is just going to make it less opaque in certain areas. We'll start with it off. What we're going to do here is we're going to come up and click on the image. Make sure that you are in the mask, and we're just going to click one time. And then I'm going to hold Shift along this edge and come over here and click again, and you can see it will randomize that pattern, and it's creating this border. And then I can come down here and click there, and then left click here, they come up here and left click, and it just draws these straight lines of this border around the image. All right, because it's translucent below it, that's why we're getting this translucency. But I can come up here and go Layer, Flatten Image. It's going to add white, and then boom, there's that kind of splatter border that we have. Now in this case, I think it's too much, so we're going to go ahead and reduce that. I'm going to hit Command Z a couple times to undo everything that we've done. So we're going to come back up here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and we're going to go back over to our brush settings, and this time we're going to hit Transfer, and we're going to apply this so you can see what's happening down here. So I don't want to change the opacity jitter a lot because it will get rid of it too much in certain areas. And under Shape Dynamics, I think we're going to control a little bit more, and that looks pretty good. So we've got a smaller image here. We're going to do the same thing over again. So we're going to come into here. So notice down here, we have this black color. That's our foreground color. So when you're working with a mask, especially white, because white shows everything, black hides. So we need to paint black into the mask to make the border kind of disappear and blend in. So we're going to click once, and then I'm going to come over here, hold Shift, click, 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 click. And then we've got that border just like we had before. If the border is coming down too much in the image, what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncheck this link, and I'm going to uncheck that and then make sure my border is selected. I'm going to hit Command T, which is transform. And then I'm holding the shift and the option on the Mac and the shift and alt on the PC. I'm just gonna stretch this out so we get a little bit less of that border. And that looks pretty good. I'll just apply that. That's changing our mask, but not adjusting our image. And then I could simply, so you can see it, just go layer, flatten image, and it's gonna add white into that location. So we're adding that border. If we wanted to make that color black, it's really easy. I'm just gonna hit Command Z. We can come down here to that layer. I can hit Shift Delete, which is the fill command. You could simply then just come up here and go Edit Fill. It's doing the same thing. And we want to fill with the color black because we want the background to be black. And now that border is going to be black because of the way we adjusted this image. The look you're going to get here is ultimately going to be dependent on the type of brush that you create. Depending on what you're after, it might be a little bit of trial and error. You could also apply multiple brushes to this. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And so we get rid of that border. In this case, I'm actually going to create a 2x3 border because that's something that I would use more often. And I'm going to make the border quite big because it's easier to scale down than it is to scale up. So we're going to come in here to inches, and I want to make this one 18 by 12. And what we're going to do is I'm going to change this to transparency, and we're going to go ahead and hit create. So right now we've got nothing. So what we're going to do next is we're going to be adding the black in here to this image. What I want here first is sort of like a dark edge like we saw before. So I'm just going to click here and click here, and you can see it's just giving us that effect. It's a little bit too even, so I'm going to hit Command Z, and I'm just going to come in here and change some of this information that we see right here. We're going to come over to scattering. We're going to scatter a little bit. We're going to change the count jitter, so how often it's there. I think I'm going to leave the transfer as is, and I'm going to increase this a little bit. We'll come back and click there. Right, click there. So that's too much. So you can see the scattering is too much, so I'm going to hit Command Z. This is one of those things where it's just trial and error. So let's reduce the scatter because it was too much. So click there, hold shift, click over here, yep. And then we're gonna click over here, and then click over here, and then click over there. So that's giving us the darker edge. Then we're gonna come over and grab that new brush that we created, which in my case, it's right here. And go back out. We still have all the shape dynamics and everything that we did there. Make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to click here and then click here and see what that looks like. Okay, so that's giving us the border, but it's too much. So I want to change the transfer opacity jitter to a much lower amount. So let's go ahead and try that. Click here, right, and then come down here, come down here, down here. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and grab the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to give this a feather of, let's try 22 for the beginning. And I'm just going to come in here. Essentially, I want to darken this outside edge more. So I'm just going to make this, and what I'm looking at is that outside edge that I want to darken. That looks pretty good. Now, right now, it's selecting the inside. I want the outside. So I'm going to hit Command Shift I. That's going to invert it. And I'm going to come down here and add a solid color. That solid color is black, exactly what I wanted. And we're going to reduce this layer so it blends in a little bit better. That's going to give us a more solid black border on the outside of the image. The next step is I'm going to select both of these layers and right click, and I want to click Merge Visible, okay? I don't want to flatten the image because I want to keep the transparency here, but I just want one layer because it just solves a lot of issues. At this point, we're going to save this. I'm going to go up here and we can do save as a copy. You could do save as though, because we want to save this as a PSD or a TIFF file because we want to retain the layers that we see right there. So I've got this as border test. I'm going to hit save. I already saved it once. That's why this is coming up. And we've got this image. Now, what I can simply do is I'm going to take my move tool and I'm going to drag this over here and then drop this on top of this image that we have right here. At this point, this image is larger than this image. So I'm just going to hit Command minus a couple times so you guys can see it. So I just need to scale this image down. And so I'm just going to grab a corner and drag it in, and I'm going to grab this side and drag it in until it fits that image perfectly. That's why I made it big. I'm going to hit Command 0 to go back out. And you can see just like that, we've applied that border to this image with that template. In this case, it's a black border, but what if we want a white border? Well, that's really easy. You're going to hit Command I to invert it. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to save this out. So we'll put it border test white. I'm going to hit OK. We're going to come here. We'll turn this border off. I'm going to simply move this over to our image. Hit Command minus a couple times. Drag this down so we can start to see it. I didn't get the corner for some reason. That looks perfect. And right over here. And hit apply. And now we have the border in a white. Once you have this done, whether it's white or black, you can control how this border interacts with the image below by changing your blending modes. So if I want to use darken, yeah, that's not going to get rid of it. If I come to lighten, it's going to use the whole thing. But if we come down here to overlay, it's going to change the different effects that we get with that border. So if you do want to change how it integrates with the image, you do have some control with using blending modes. So if we want to try the black, we can simply turn on the black border. I could do the same thing. We can then slide through the different blending modes to see how they're going to blend the image. Essentially, you're going to get more of a change when you get down here into some of the contrast blending modes and how they work with the image. Not going to get anything drastic, but whatever you want. We can also lower the opacity of this. So right now this layer is at 100% and I can reduce that so it integrates in with the image a little bit. If that's something that you want, you could do the same thing with the white. So we just select that layer, lower the opacity, and part of that image is going to show through. That just gives you complete control over how you want your border to integrate with your image. So we are going to go ahead and hit shift and get rid of all this stuff. We don't need this black layer here. When it comes down to creating borders, it's really just up to your imagination as to what you can create. And so I'm going to show you how to create one now from an image like this. So this was just a simple grunge texture that I downloaded. I'm simply going to switch this to black and white. And then I'm going to come up here to curves. And I'm actually going to use a preset, which I never do. And I'm just going to do increase contrast because that's simple. I could come in here and alter the curve, but this is going to get me close enough to what I want. In this image, we're good. I'm going to go ahead and go layer, flatten image, because I eventually only want this in one layer. What we're going to do is come up to the rectangle marquee selection tool. I'm going to hit Command minus just to make this a little smaller so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool. I have a feather of 22 still. And we're going to select this. Look, you could change that feather. I think this is going to work. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can go in and change it if it's not something we like. So I'm going to make that selection, and right now we're going to come in and we're going to mask that. All right, so that's mask the opposite. I'm just going to hit Command I and flip it. So we don't want anything here. That's where our image is going to go. And then out here on the edge, we have the image. What we're going to do is just make a curves adjustment. We're not going to do anything to that curves adjustment, and we're going to change the blending mode to overlay just to give us higher contrast image. And the last thing we're going to do is simply hit the letter B. That is going to bring up our brush. All I have is a soft round brush, just your basic soft round brush that you can see right here. I'm going to move my flow maybe up to 43. All right, with our brush selected, flow at 43%, the color black, we need to make sure that we're on our image because otherwise this won't work. We're going to come up here, left click once, go to the other side, hold shift, click, it's going to draw that straight line. I'm going to come down, click, draw that straight line, come down here, click, draws that straight line, and boom, draws that straight line. I'm going to go ahead and lower the flow a little bit, and I'm going to come in a little to this area. So let's go ahead and test it out. So I'm going to click once, I'm going to go to the other side and click again. That actually looks pretty good. So we're going to come over here and do it, come over here to do it, and up here to do it. And it looks like I want to add just a little bit more here, about here to here. That looks pretty good. And there we go, that's our new border. So we could simply save that. It's going to be darker around the edge and feather out. Now, when you have it on an image like this border, and you could really turn this border into a mask if you wanted as well. Let me show you both methods. Essentially, I can get them to do generally the same thing. So we're going to select both of these. Usually when I make a border and I right click, so I can just select merge visible. And that's going to keep the translucency, but just make it essentially one layer in the image, and that's what I want. And the last thing that we have is basically integrating these with programs, both On1 software and DxO's Nik Collection have borders. So I'm going to come up here to plugins, and I'm going to go to Nik Collection, and this first one we can check is silver effects. So I'll bring up silver effects. I'm going to open this image into silver effects. So in this image, because we're in silver effects, it's turning this black and white, but I can show you how to override that so it works with colors. Down here, you can see we've got image borders. If I click on this, it shows us the different borders that we have available. I can click on any of the borders and it's simply going to apply them. I have control over how the border interacts with this image. I can also come over here and pick different borders just by hovering over them. I can control the size of the borders, the spread, and anything else that we want to control. Once we like something, I can hit apply, and now it's going to apply that border to this image. So if I'm wanting to bring the color back, it's pretty easy. We can actually just click on this, and I'm going to select the whites in this image, and then I'm going to invert that because I don't want the border selected of white. I actually want everything else. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-I to invert it. So now everything here is selected, and I can simply put a mask on that image and invert that mask, and then boom, it's applying the color back to the photo, and we still have the border into this image. All right. So that's just kind of a way around it. I will come out here and delete that. So what we can do is come up here to plugins. I can go to Nik Collection. We also have borders and analog effects. So we can click on analog effects. Inside analog effects, these borders will not affect your color like they did in silver effects. And what we want to come down here is where it says frames. So I can just hit plus in this case, and you can see we've got all of these different borders that we can apply to our image by just selecting them. And then we have film strip, white, and light box. So if I want to do the white ones, I can click on white. These are similar to what you saw before. I can just click on that. It's going to apply that border to this image. And if I don't like that, I can just click on something else and we can go through the different borders. So in this case, the Nik effect has a whole bunch of different pre-built-in borders that we can apply to any image. There are other programs out there that do have integrated borders into them. That is how you create and add borders to your images inside of Adobe Photoshop. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did and could give us a thumbs up, that would be great. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And don't forget to subscribe.